Kindly subscribe to this channel and as well like this video and share it with others. On our videos, we will be looking at how Africans can rescue Africa by themselves. Africans were developing at their own pace, especially in the area of agriculture and food, until the time when Europeans came and disrupt by introducing slave trade, which transported young and energetic Africans to Europe and America as slaves. So these people that are expected to be the source of productivity were taken away, and their absence created vacuum in the economic and technological development of the continent. Many African states are turned into war zones with the intent of capturing and selling slaves to Europeans and Americans. And in some few African states that escaped slave trade, such as South Africa, the Europeans imposed a different set of institutions that was designed to create cheap labor for their mines and farms. The Europeans also created dual economy, which prevent 80% of the population to participate in skilled occupations such as commercial farming and entrepreneurship. The kings, who were the political and administrative heads, found European goods attractive, and some of them even handed their subjects to the white people in exchange for material things like gin, mirrors, clothes, and so on. And that is the major cause of the reason why the followers in Africa hardly trust their leaders till today. Some kings who were against slave trade were subdued by Europeans because of guns and gunpowder. Scramble for Africa. Africa was divided by the imperialist nations in Berlin Conference in Germany to find solutions to economic and social and political problems that faced most of European nations, such as demand for raw materials to feed their industries, the demand for market for industrial manufactured goods, and need for area of investment and demand for cheap labor. The partition of Africa equally created problems for the Africans. It led to colonial rule. It led to decline of African culture. It exposed Africa to exploitative economy. Africa produces goods she couldn't consume and consume what she could not produce due to importation of European goods. African countries became the colonies of Europe and extension of European markets, and become dependent on European countries economically. The emerging crafts and indigenous technology that were developed to increase production to replace handmade products stopped, especially cloth weaving, when mass-produced European cloths dominated African markets. African product producers were rendered jobless because of low demand for their products, and they either abandoned their crafts or continued to produce little products because of their passion for the scale. According to Walter Rodney, there was technological arrest or stagnation, and in some instances, actual regression, since people forgot even the simple techniques of their forefathers. And that was how Africa surrendered politically, socially, educationally, and religiously, and depend on Europeans. Depend on the Europeans for majority of products they needed for daily living. Since then, education ceased from being the major thing that opened the eyes of the people to opportunities around them. education becomes an instrument of exploitation. The students were taught what interests the European colonialists. The students were not taught more of what has happened and happening in Africa. They knew more about the Queen of England than African kings like Ooni of Ife, Obi of Onitsha, Emir of Kano, Shaka Zulu, Moremi Ajasoro, and they know more about British environment than their God-given endowed environment. Africans were not educated or encouraged to learn science and engineering courses, but were trained to become junior clerks, interpreters, and letter writers, with the major aims of using them to exploit African natural resources, and also used some African airlines to sell goods produced in Europe, especially goods that were unsaleable in Europe. But today, it is not goods unsaleable in Europe alone, but used goods like cars, clothes, even toys, electronics, underwear, and the continent has become the dumping ground of all sorts of used products from abroad. I hope you have gained tremendously. I want to humbly appeal to you to kindly subscribe to Lim TV Plus for more.